All right, another surf report, everybody. Are you ready for the hero's journey this week? Going to the dangerous depths. That might sound like fear, but positivity is right around the corner, and I can show you some of our fellow surfers who are feeling that. So exciting stuff. We got to get our arms in the air. We've got some T-squares all week, but there's some hidden gems. Just like always, the universe doesn't just throw crap at you and expect you to deal with it. All right, here's our summary slide. There I mentioned the hero's journey. Now, I could have called this several things because what we're working with in the tropical astrology is a bunch of retrogrades. I mean, those are the outer planets, and it's really the sort of the reversal, and you're going to see that in the dream bot, sort of the reversal of the subconscious, transformation kind of stuff. You're going to see more oppositions, but what that's going to amount to are a bunch of T-squares. The main one, Uranus T-square with Saturn and Sun. So your identity's in there, your self-identity, your ego, that kind of stuff. But the moon's going to pass through there, and that's going to make a really emotional change sort of a day, even a trap. And then there's another moon T-square in there somewhere. And then you're going to see this Pluto sextile Neptune. This is the little quiet gem. And Pluto, is the planet of transformation. And Neptune is the dreamy escape, fantasy sort of thing. Energy. And so that's going to be really interesting. We'll talk about that. We have Sun and Mercury getting closer together. We have Mars going into Virgo. There's just a lot, as there has been in the past, recent past. The Dreambot is moving forward with change, and I've got a special word for you. A hint, I've already said it. But it's a special word because I've never seen this at the top of the Dreambot run. So you got some interesting things there. And by the way, I'm going to stumble like I normally do, but I can't go back. This is a one-time thing because I'm so busy this afternoon. So if I screw up, well, there's no going back. Just going to have to power through it. All right, so I-Ching says dangerous depths, and there's no change lines, so it's the influence and the solution. If you're new here, we're triangulating for the influence so that you can get an idea for what you can expect to feel as the predominant energy. And this week, I called it Hero's Journey, but boy, we could probably call it dangerous depths too, because Dreambot feels it. It's definitely there in the astrology. Sort of contentious, hard, heavy, and deep. So I originally called it deeper than the shadow is what my original. But after looking at the Dreambot, because I got to do the Dreambot the last thing because we want the latest information from the Dreambot, I can look forward in the astrology. I mean, with the software, you can go out to any date you want. And of course, the I-Ching, the coins can be intended at really any time as long as you specify the dates. And these dates are between July 29th and August 4th. Our weeks go from Thursday to Wednesday. And so this surf report is starting with July 28th. So with the overlap, right at the very center is this Uranus T-square because it involves the sun. I'm showing the sun right in the middle of this astrology on most occasions. And so this circle, the dangerous depths, because it's a harsh, a pressurized week with the T-squares, the dangerous depths is right there with the identity, the sun, and the ego. And so I'm also including dangerous depths with Pluto, sextile Neptune. That's why I have these highlighted. And then the Dreambot is moving forward with change. So change is the Uranus. So that's with the T-square around the sun. So that it's right in the middle too. So it's a very high congruency score. And I'm calling it the hero's journey, but you know that there's some other possible names for it as well. So it could be tough, but we're going to talk about the solutions here throughout. Are you ready? Let's get started with the DreamBot next. All right. Without further ado, the DreamBot is the collective unconscious, people's dreams, and they are number one word with a 73.5 surge scale score. That's super high, 200% surge. It's transformation. The word transformation is at the very top. That's a boom right there. The collective unconscious is thinking about transformation. Now, all these blue arrows is what I sort of connected this group with. I'm not too attached, okay, to this connection and how these all connect, but fragment and even like the word opposite and previous. So transformation could be going back to the previous state. And because we're going into these deeper depths, according to the I-Ching, that sort of makes sense. So getting to be more about who we really are, maybe returning and transforming back. And in a way, if you look at it more as a collective thing, maybe returning back to a republic. And I'm not saying it's happening being in this week, but all these transformations are happening at the same time, as above, so below. And you're going to see these transformations play out in the astrology this week. So very, very interesting. Then the other meme is definitely moving forward. You have words like race, and we're not, so lift, like moving for a river moves forward, via and corridor. So avenues of moving forward. So the collective, it's not at the top of it. So moving forward. And then a tiny little meme. There's just want to point out two words, fear and nightmare. Those are sort of indicated in the moving forward. Is it indicated, any sort of adapting, any sort of changing, transformation, any sort of change can be fearful. In fact, it causes anxiety. It causes stress. Stress is anxiety, fight or flight. So any sort of adaptation, any sort of change, the body has to go through an adaptation, and that is stress. And then the bigger the adaptation, or the more we refuse that transformation and change, the more stress you go under. And you can have mental stresses where it's just sort of made up, or you can go through real stressors. But anyway, it's our reaction. So what we're looking at in terms of the influence is the amount of change that we're going through, as above, so below. So individually and as a collective, the word transformation, very indicative. All right. I beat that to a pulp. Let's move on to the astrology. But first, big shout out to all sorts. I mean, I hate just picking and choosing, but I think it's important. Like Milos, I love that. I'm late. That was funny. And Milos always puts a couple comments in that are short, but it helps the algorithm. And so shout out to Milos. I didn't have space for Brian Adams, but go back and look at him. He's got some philosophical instructions in there. Great stuff. Thanks. Shout out to Brian Adams. Great comments, multiple ones. And then QB says, I woke up the other morning with this old 1920s song in my head, Happy Days Are Here Again. And continues on. The world is changing. And I love this, that we're pushing out not to override the negative side of things, but as we morph and change as a collective, it's important to see that there's both sides to this, to be recognizing that they're, maybe not feel so good to be going through this, but there's also the positive feelings, especially for those who are able to just live your life through this transformation. That's the main thing. Then let us see it now. I love how she looks at the timestamps and then connects it. I'm impartial to Tesla because I did some deeper studies in Tesla, especially technology, and spent some time working through some of his inventions. Not with great results, but I loved the process of trying to understand Tesla more. So a shout out to Let Us See It Now for all that. And then here's an example, SM on Telegram. I'm not going to read the dream, but if you don't want to put the dream into the National Dream Center, I love that SM put her dream, or his, not sure the sex, the gender, but their dream in the Telegram, and we can have a conversation around it. So go ahead and do that. And we can, at some point, let's see if I can get a link, I can include those dreams into the Dreambot even. So just put them in, or wherever you want to. Put your dreams into Telegram or the National Dream Center database. All right. Big shout out to SM. Thank you. All right. Here's the astrology. And, okay. So first of all, the first part of the week, we have this, let's see. It's Jupiter. All right. So Jupiter is going into Aquarius. Remember, Jupiter is in retrograde, so moving back into Aquarius. That's very important because it's that wise, returning into the disclosure, into the independence. Everything Aquarius is going to get a boost of optimism. And I'm just speaking for me, I guess, as an Aquarian, but just as a human, is that the age of Aquarius is important to me, that we don't have secrets that especially used against us, and everything is coming out on the table. You can't obscure these things anymore. And Jupiter brings in this, not just positivity and optimism, but insight, higher philosophy, higher, like transcendent living is the extreme of Jupiter. So you combine all those together and it becomes the, almost 5D feeling, if not 5D in and of itself. All right. So Mars going into Virgo, this is going to bring some more shoulds in there. Mercury moving into Leo with some more, creative and childlike wonderment in the mind. These are all oppositions and conjunctions. So I wanted to point that out because we don't know if red is square or opposition or conjunction. So mostly oppositions. It's a balancing act. Now, here's a brief overview of August. Okay. First of all, you're going to have Uranus the third week in August going retrograde, and that would mean that all the outer planets are in retrograde at that time. So that's interesting. All of the subconscious planets, or the planets that represent subconscious material, real deep material, they're all reversing. And that could send us back. That could, make us return to a earlier phase. And so I'll let you chew on what that would mean for you personally, but also the collective. We'll have Venus moving signs, Mercury moving signs. We'll have the Sun going into Virgo in that third week. And, just a continuation of all these oppositions. All right, that's enough. Thursday. Now, one thing about the way I have my software set up is that I have squares aging out as they're waning. If they're in the waning phase, they're going to age out at 4 degrees. So my point is here, I have a missing line, and I'm calling it a T-square on Uranus because you've got Sun square Uranus. And this is just the very beginning because the Sun is at 6 degrees of Leo, and that's just within that 8 degrees. So this is just starting this square here. And that's a pressurized, this is the start of the hero's journey, right? And because it's pressurized on the ego, on the young, the childlike, the creative Leo ego. So the the inner child at its metaphoric analogy is squared up or pressurized to change insight, change to the material world, change how we sense the world, all that stuff. And then Uranus then is in a square still, but my software ends at 4 degrees on the backside is Saturn. So the things that we've been talking about are change, or Uranus sort of just rubbing raw this status quo, the way things that have always been, the power in the laws, etc., just rubbing them raw. And so in a T-square, then it pressurizes the center theme here, which is Uranus. And Uranus, again, it's the same memes I talked about in the Age of Aquarius. It is eccentric. It's freedom. It's change. It's also insight. It's the mad scientist. And when you've got this in a birth chart, a natal chart, if you had this in a natal chart, this would probably be a disgruntled mad scientist, because you're living in this. It's hard to get out of it, and it would have a great effect on the Venus, on relationships. Relationships are turning more should, and in Virgo. So, and detailed, easy energy over there. All right, now let's shift gears here, because what I just described as the T-square is going to be there all week, and plus some. So we'll look at that the following week. But these oppositions is egoic, entertaining thoughts. So you have 5 degrees between Mercury and the Sun, getting closer, versus really, Saturn and Aquarian together is, questioning things, but there's that should again. And so we have the entertaining thoughts because Mercury is now in Leo. And you have to balance that with what should be done from the collective standpoint for the collective good. So this is a self-sacrificing sort of arrangement with Saturn and Aquarius. And you're balancing those two together, which means that now you're sort of in a mind state where it's conflicted. It's interconflicted. So you want to be entertained. You want to be egoic. So it's going to be superficial. But this is saying, what should I do at a more serious level? Because Aquarians aren't all that fun-loving like Leos are. They're much more serious in nature. And so that whole inner conflict will be there. You're going to be forced to balance that out. And then this is going to be here all week. It's going to be Pluto, sextile Neptune. So very, very dreamy. You're going to get the laws of spirituality streaming through the dreams and subconscious material. And there's going to be an opportunity for transformation. And there you go. There's your connection to the dream bot. But in this case, Pluto is not the same as Uranus, but very similar in terms of unpredictability in what's actually transpires. And so it does match. Uranus matches the dream bot too, because it's change and it's moving forward. Oh, wow. And that was just the first day. Onward we go. We still have the T-square on Uranus. And you can see as the moon progresses up there, is going to make a conjunction. That's going to be our biggest emotional trap, if you will, but emotional insight. And I'll talk more about that later. But that's going to be the moon conjunct Uranus. We still have these shoulds. Now it gets even more extreme because Mars now going into Virgo. And this is should-based action. What should I be doing? Sort of second guessing yourself, sort of being your own inner authority, your own inner critic. You're also doing this to your relationships. You're also sort of extra or hypercritical of others, especially the ones that are closest to you, maybe hypercritical of harmony and beauty. And so those things come out in judgments to others. So it might be a little bit more judgmental, especially to yourself. What should I do? That's what Mars in Virgo says. And that matches what I talked about with the Sun opposed Saturn. So that's just really great that we're going to have a chance of being interconflicted as we go through this hero's journey. But what if the dangerous depths are more about your own inner conflicts? So you're trying to get down below those conflicts so that you can get knowing. And that one is part of the solution. So I'm talking too much now. But all right, on Saturday, we have, again, the T-square is here. The reason why this is now at 8:30 p.m. for the July 31st. So Saturday evening, 8:34 p.m. That's when the moon conjuncts exactly with Uranus. And during that time, so now you've got a double square, and then you've got a single square over here that's not represented. Saturn, Uranus, and moon. And so in essence, you have another double here. So it's a double T-square all the way around, and it accentuates this alignment. I don't want to say good or bad. It's going to feel probably very stressful, like I talked about in the change and the adaptation. Fight or flight, it's going to go through the roof. You're probably going to feel, the moon represents emotions, probably feeling the adaptation, which is going to feel like stress or anxiety for most people. Maybe even full up paranoia because it's doubled. And inside of it, you've got your thoughts and your ego. So, wow, your identity's in there. And then Saturn, the way things should be or ought to be, or the way things have always been, status quo. And Uranus obviously doesn't want the status quo. So you got a battle here, a double emotional battle against Saturn, and it's just double all the way around. And so thoughts degrading because Mercury's getting closer to the sun. Call that combust. And it is not Cazimi because they're not in the same vertical space in the sky. But so Mercury, your thoughts, communication is going to be difficult during this time frame. They're almost at an all-time low. As they pass perfectly, they're not going to be in the same vertical spot, but as they go, actually they're going in the same direction. So that was a bad representation. But Mercury is going to get ever closer to the sun, and then ever degraded. Your thoughts are going to get even more degraded as it gets closer to the azimuth of the sun. So more unreliable. On Sunday the 1st, this is back to the 12 o'clock Central Times. Now we have just it looks like a T-square on the moon, but it's not. They're within they're just outside of conjunction on this day. So you roughly get a full day of conjunction between Uranus and moon, and it's mostly during that weekend. We still have the Uranus T-square with Saturn, and now you can see that Mercury is just past the sun now on August 1st. So still degraded, but now it's going to be walking opening. And so from this point on, August 1st onward until Mercury goes, disregard that. I don't think Mercury goes retrograde for a while. But Mercury is going to make more and more space, and then your thoughts and communication and travel, short-term travel, are going to be improving after August 1st. Okay, what else? We have on Monday, the 2nd, we still have the T-square, like I mentioned, with Uranus. And you got the Mars and Moon. Mars is getting comfortable now in Virgo. So as your biggest energy when these when these planets change signs is going to be right when it hits, especially from a Leo to a Virgo. It was fun loving before, sort of who cares? I don't really think about the repercussions, and then boom, now all my actions are sort of hypercritical to everything, and maybe even to a point of conflict. But you're going to feel that there's not going to be changing. You're sort of settled into that now, so be looking for it, and don't let it prevent you from value-based living. Moon headed over the North Node in Gemini. I don't spend a lot of time on the moon. So here's the big one. On Tuesday the 3rd, the moon has just passed over the North Node, which is the future karmic path of mentality and intellectualism, is Gemini, but in a T-square. The T-square is short-lived because the moon travels faster than most planets. But you got a T-square on the moon with Venus in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. And so that trap is very emotional because, Virgo or Venus really draws from emotions. I mean, that's how we connect. That's how we bond. Venus with romance and harmony and mediation. And then dreams is connected to this too. This is going to be a trap of togetherness with others, but deeply emotional. It goes very well with the hero's journey. And the sun, we're checking up on him, still not even to the exact of this opposition. So ego still pressurized by change, and change pressurized by the status quo, and around we go. This is the hero's journey, that T-square. So we got we got double T square on this leg here. But in essence, you have two separate T-squares on August 3rd. So this is going to be pretty pressurized, especially because your emotions are heightened and pressurized, about ready to burst, maybe. Is the feeling here. The ego is continuing the pressure to change, like you have to. And you know how Uranus loves to be on the leading edge of that have to change. I mean, it's just things that you didn't expect, and you're just going to have to accept it. Acceptance is a big one here as you move through this week. As you hit hardship, or the feelings or the perception of hardship, even real or not, acceptance of not rolling over and taking it, but acceptance of where you are. Accepting everything that's happened, especially out of your control, which is the past. Anything from the past is out of your control. So acceptance first, and then value-based living from there. If you want to make the change it. In a Uranus T-square, wanting to change things is wonderful, and getting insight is the result. And I'll talk about that in the solution. Wednesday the 4th, T-square on, you guessed it, Uranus. We have not less than 4 oppositions, and a new one is Venus oppose Neptune. And so it's balancing. You can see how the T-square is still pressurized, but now it's about how to balance all these things from these things. All these topics. Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune. You notice how all these are eventually, they are on one side. These are the subconscious on one side of the zodiac, and Uranus about to go into retrograde towards the end of this month. And then all of the direct, but more of the conscious planets representing things that you can see yourself. They're not so subconscious like these are. So it's subconscious versus conscious, and not versus as in we're conflicted per se, but it's about balancing the two out. So, habits would be in the subconscious and balancing those with what your conscious mind wants to do. Just looking at that continuum, they need to be balanced out. If you just live in robot mode, that's living over in habit. just pure habit. And so that would not be a very balanced approach. We need to do conscious living. Has anyone here tried to do very, very mindful based action 24 hours of the day? Very, very hard. Even at night when you're sleeping, you would have to be lucid dreaming and being aware each moment that you're dreaming that you're in the dream. So I've actually tried this for about a week, and it was a great test, and realized that that's really hard to do. To be that aware all the time takes an extraordinary amount of work. But that's how you balance that out, to be more mindful and less robotic. But looking at, so here's the benefit of this alignment, is that you can look at your habits and see whether or not they're helpful for you. There you go. All right, let's take the highlighter out and get into the I-Ching reading. This is from the 29th to August 4th. It was meant to be the influence, but since there is no change line, that makes our solution hexagram 29 as well. So when I read dangerous depths, which is water over water, you can see there's two trigrams that are the same, or it's one trigram on top of each other, which is water. Water over water is the abysmal. It's the dangerous depths. And in water can be emotions in the world of astrology, but it can also be in the world of the I-Ching. It's just going to be the subconscious, the deeper part of ourselves. So it says this: exposure to danger brings good fortune to those who move beyond it. Now, they didn't say that you want to ignore it. Now, I'm going to try to do the influence and the solution together when I read this, okay? But it doesn't say ignore it. It says face it. Those who face the serious challenges, you're going to basically saying you're going to face serious challenges, so you need to remain alert. It's not about pretending that the problems don't exist. It's the ability to look towards the problems, the dangerous depths, not fear from it, and just move through it. I have a song for you today that will help you do this. It's an incredible video that I'd like to share. And you can even put that on right now. You can click the link down in the comment section. I think it's the first link to the YouTube video, and listen to this song as I read this. The positive side of danger is that it offers an excellent chance to cleanse the senses and strengthen the spirit. Also sharpens the sword. It's the hero's journey. We don't come back from the forest after we've killed the monster and expect to be the same little boy or the same little girl. We're going to be growing into a man now, or experienced. We might even, and woman as the gender's appropriate, whatever. But going through the cataclysm, you're not, it's a one-way door. You're not going back to the way things have been in the past. So anyway, let's continue on. Surviving a crisis can be tremendously reinvigorating, sharpening the eye and the mind for future challenges. This is ringing true for any sort of stress that the body goes through, assuming it's not too toxic. A little bit of stress goes a long way in performance, health, everything. Even fasting, even not eating is stressful on the body, but in a very good way, depending on different considerations. And I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not prescribing anything, including a diet plan for everybody. But fasting is stressful on the body, and that tends to improve the immune system, tends to improve all sorts of things and functions in the body. It is reckless to court danger, but critical for inner development to not shrink from it either. I think that one says it really well. Those who respond to dangerous conditions most effectively are those who can establish an inner bubble of calm in the midst of chaos. An emotionally stable center keeps one rooted in the moment, alert and focused. So it's about being alert and focused, but not stressed out and paranoid. It's about moving through the danger without succumbing to it or ignoring it. Courage at times like these springs from focused attention and a brave willingness to penetrate the moment of peril to its very core, to reshape and transform it. There's a direct correlation to the dreambot, is the actual word. The situation may not be as bad as you think, but you may be making it dangerous because of an unhealthy attachment to it. It can show unchecked depression that needs to be dealt with. If you are always feeling down or trapped in a pit, the message is to stop being a victim and blaming events for your frustration. A change in daily routine, which allows for even small accomplishments, will work wonders in your self-esteem. All right, we're ready for the solution now. So we're taking our astrology chart. Can you guess which chart we used for our conversion? Yes, it's when Uranus and the moon are conjunct, and they're conjunct in Taurus at 14 degrees, 39 minutes of Taurus. This is on July 31st, the last day of the month, and it's our transition into another month. This is in the evening of the last day of July 2021. So we have the Rave Mandala is hexagram 2. We'll read that next. But we also have Sidereal Aries. And if you're new here, we do use both tropical and sidereal. Sidereal is for the solution. And we're going to take the Aries actions because that's the main influence. That's the main transformative influence this week from our influence slide. And we're going to use the behaviors more commensurate with Aries. All right. Here's, remember hexagram 2? We had that for so many weeks. This is the benefit. You're going to receive higher knowing if you do this week well. This is the most receptive of all the hexagrams. It's yin. It's the yin. It's the receive. So it is mechanical function is of the vehicle holding us together in the illusion of our separateness and giving us our direction. This is the potential to continue evolving, which finds expression and manifestation through the 3 other Sphinx gates. But look at this. This is the potential to continue evolving. That's another form of transformation. It's another direct overlap. Line 2 is genius, and that comes directly from Uranus. So this is the gift you get. And we've been talking actually about this more recently with the square to Uranus. But now, because it's a trap, the genius is even more accentuated, especially at the moment the moon passes over. Emotions offer insight. And this is what's going to happen when you've got a pressurized mad scientist with deep emotion that results in just unlearnable knowing, a natural gift for unlearnable knowing. That's a quote from the Rave. Unconscious and unlearnable alignment of stimulus and response, the natural, the inner strength to focus and realize, a natural gift for unlearnable knowing. So there's your gift. Genius, line 2, Rave Mandala. And I know it probably should be towards the end, but I put this here because I can do the note taker. But this is Papa Roach. It's the video that I mentioned earlier. And wow, it actually plays. Isn't that crazy? Well, I don't want to get a copyright suit, so I've got to pause it. And it's Face Everything and Rise. And you got to watch this video, even if you don't like the music, put it on mute. But it's crazy how it's sort of talking. It looks like it's representative of a pandemic. It's crazy. So anyway, but the words are important too. You can look up the lyrics if you don't like the music. All right, let's do the solution slide. And I forgot the intervention thing, but it's the hero's journey this week. That's the influence. Can feel like tumultuous. It can feel like the dangerous depths. It can feel like there's no hope. It can feel very anxious. It can feel like you're separated. That's one of the hallmarks of the hero's journey, is they're all alone and they're too vulnerable and they don't know if they're going to make it through this. Those are all the feelings associated with hero's journey. And I'd like to just tell you that it's all a cognitive space. And there is a divinity to the hero's journey. Life isn't always about seeking pleasure and feeling pleasure. Sometimes it's about meeting challenges without ignoring them, without cowering, having the strength and fortitude to move through it with pure, just values, but also this sense of purpose through it, divinity in it. And then here's the solution. Best solution. I'm going to triangulate for you, but just a reminder, we did the I-Ching 29, Dangerous Depths. We read through that. Stay alert. Small accomplishments this week to give you self-esteem, strengthen the spirit and soul as you go through the craziness. And then the rave said, gate of higher knowing, or the receptive, but genius. The line was genius, a natural gift for unlearnable knowing. And then Aries brings us the warrior. And so here's how we put it all together. All components of this week's solution work together like lock and key. And hopefully you saw that as I read through them. Basically, you're afforded the warrior spirit of Aries to have the courage, strength, and alertness and fortitude to face imminent challenges in the dangerous depths of inner change. The result is indicated with the rave, to know the unlearnable, to know, to feel. Knowing is more of a feeling, the unlearnable. And to know is not like understanding it. It's feeling the knowing. It is intuition. It's to know. And there's nobody that can take you off of that because you know it. In the world of Gnostics, this word knowing is where the word Gnostic comes from. It's the knowing. It's understanding, yes, but beyond that, it's being convicted of something without having the proof or the evidence, I guess. But the evidence is the experience. That's the whole point of Gnosticism. I know it because I've experienced it. And the reason why it says the knowing the unlearnable is because this is not stuff you can learn in a book. You have to experience it. Hence, the hero's journey. You're going to experience something this week that may or may not feel uncomfortable, but it's now you're going to know it because you've experienced it, not because you read it in a book. Expect fast-changing emotions. Expect great insight through emotional awareness and acceptance by invoking the Aries energy. Expect anger to possibly be predominant. It's not strong, or it's not wrong to feel anger. Just don't act impulsively off of it. Don't act impulsively on any emotion this week. The discomfort might be so great that you do act impulsively. And even if it is like a safety situation, there is going to be a space. And insert in that space the knowing. Is this what I need to be doing? Not to be frozen in doubt, but just to check in with your intuition. Genius level. See, these are the bonus points for the week. For even better knowing, tap into the deepest emotional content, the deepest dreams, hidden subconscious power, maybe shadow work if that feels like something you're ready for. But above all, learn thyself this week. And that is the point of genius. That's the knowing the unlearnable. But from an ego standpoint, that's the hero's journey. Wow, I could just keep going on, but I think I'll just be repetitive of everything I've said. So I know that was a lot here. The main things are discomfort shows up this week. Move through it. Move with it. Move into it. experience it, and then know it. It's for deeper knowing. Use that Aries so that you don't live in fear. Fear is not the part of this equation because of the Aries solution. It's just being the strong, accepting warrior, willing to go to the deepest lengths for your highest values. All right. Carry the flag into next week, everybody. Your flag, the flag that matters to you. And we will see you on Telegram. Thanks for all the comments on YouTube. Thanks for the shares. I know a lot of you have been sharing, and I really appreciate that. We're still growing, slowly but surely, and I'm grateful. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.